What's up, guys? So, tonight I wanted to discuss what I think my life would have been like is if, as opposed to my parents being my parents, I would have instead been brought up by the parents of my parents, which are my grandparents. And this question is particularly difficult because unfortunately, I never really got to spend that much time with my grandparents outside of my early childhood. So, this is going to be kind of an exercise for my brain more than anything. And really, I just want to have the question out there to hear stories that you guys may have of what you think your life would have been like if you would have been raised by your grandparents. I love learning about people's past and things like this. So I look forward to you guys sharing if you feel like it. So, okay. My grandparents on my father's side are going to be the easiest to discuss because pretty much I can count the number of times that I ever hung out with them that I have memory with. And then when I was a newborn, of course, it would be an occasional type of thing. But honestly, I don't know them at all. I don't know them that well. I really don't know what their upbringing was like and therefore how they would probably raise me. I never really talked to my aunts about this either. My father never really talked about his upbringing either, but you guys know that I don't talk to him much anyway. So that's going to be very easy to talk about, and that is just a huge question mark. But if I had to speculate based on the kind of behavior that my aunts and father exude, of course, my dad is a different behavior because he's the only boy. And on top of that, he was not born into a marriage. He was pretty much born outside of marriage. So that already is an indication that you're going to have a home that is going to be broken, and therefore, if in my timeline where she is my mother, um, I would imagine that that would mess me up because it's pretty much repeating the story of what I experienced in my real timeline, which is, I didn't grow up with my daddy and this is what happened to me. But the difference is that because the years are different, like the dates are different, there is stuff that existed, there is stuff that was being developed, and for instance, um, when my father was born, it had been pretty recent that the civil rights stuff had taken place. So, what would life have been like back then? But, anyways, when it comes to my maternal grandparents, I know a whole lot more about them because, of course, my mother has shared stories of her upbringing. And what I understand is that, first of all, they got married at a very young age, and none of them finished school. My grandfather, probably the most he had was like some high school education, but I don't recall hearing that he finished school or that he went to college. He became a carpenter all of his life. He was a carpenter and he was great at what he did because there were a lot of places that mom would say that he built up or that he helped build, and this is like wooden houses and stuff, and even some that had like concrete and whatnot. And I'm like, you know what? That is impressive. A structure like that, it's pretty impressive. So, um, to know that he had like an artistic eye and he was able to be crafty on something that I just have a learning disability on, then to me, I find that impressive. That he did not need a higher education to be a good carpenter. So, um, from what I understand, he too was born out of wedlock. So I highly doubt that he knew his father, and even if he knew his father, um, they did not really have contact, from what I understand. So that is something that I will have to ask mom a little bit more about, but I never heard anything about my grandfather knowing his father, or let alone having a relationship with his father. And if he did, then it must not have been a good one, because from during my time when he was alive and we were spending time together, I never knew of my grandfather talking about his father. So that area is pretty dark and unknown for me. Um, and then my grandmother, she was raised by, she came from a lineage that had money. It's not like they were insanely filthy, madly rich, but yeah, her father, he was not starving. He actually could fix people's lives and finances like that. And what he used to do is he owned a lot of land, and he would, of course, be the overlord and watch over it, and stuff like that. The landlord of things. So he pretty much made his money by owning stuff, owning animals, and therefore, whatever products you could make from animal products, sell that stuff. And he never had to buy food. He could grow absolutely anything in his fields. So that pretty much set my grandmother up for a pretty stable future, to where she was always steps ahead, and she had an advantage when it came to the financial sector. And to this day, because she still lives, she has some of that land, and she also has another property. So when that lady passes on, it's gonna be a mess to get all of that stuff sorted. But hopefully, she has all of that up to date. But with that said, I guess I can dive into what I think me being brought up by them would have been like. So, fortunately, my mom has told me a lot of stories of how what her experience was like. And unfortunately, she has expressed that she was miserable, because during the years that she was growing up, this is the 60s, 70s, and all that, um, the kind of treatment that she would get is, say, from her grandfather. She wasn't allowed to be hanging out with her cousins past a certain time, especially that was a universal rule. Like, all female cousins had to be inside of the house by, I think it's 6 p.m. or something, because it's starting to get dark, or it's starting to be late. And then one time my mother brought that up, and she was like, why do we have to go inside, and why do the boys get to stay out? And then my grandfather's answer was simply, because they are men. And when I think about it, it doesn't make sense to me. That's not like a valid excuse. But when I think about it more critically, I guess it's all about preserving you and keeping you safe, and maybe avoiding you to just run off, like, and possibly ruin your life. And what I mean by that is, maybe he did not approve of the fact that my grandmother got pregnant at such an early age. So he was trying to protect my mother from going through something like that, even though we're talking about my mom was only a little kid. But being underage, say 15, 16, 17, or hell, even 14, that's not deterring some people from, having offspring. So they, without a doubt, they were very, very strict. You had to be up like by 5 a.m. or so, and for him, he used to be up like at 4. But the rest of the family, they were expected to be up super early, even if you're a child. And then, of course, the good thing about this is that because they were a huge family, It's like you did not need to employ anybody to help you with anything. The labor was within the family. Everything was just family owned, family oriented, and that's why everyone got their cut and their benefits. And a lot of those folks are pretty well off presently. Except that some folks may not be doing as well because they decide to just burn through their money and they don't have investments or they don't have extremely successful businesses. And of course, practicing the activities that made our grandfather wealthy is not really going to generate much for you presently unless you know how to do it. So, with that said, I think that being raised by my grandparents for me would have been frustrating. And this is the part where it gets tricky for me to try to speculate what my life would have been like because I am saying this now in 2019 based on the experiences that I had. I don't know by default if the person that I am today is the person that I was meant to be no matter what, because that's what my spirit dictates for me to be. But if I'm the way that I am solely and exclusively because of my circumstances and the way that my mother brought me up, then this speculation is going to be terribly wrong and invalid. And I mentioned that to make you guys aware that I have considered that. But let's say, for the sake of speculation, that the kind of personality that I have presently is the result of that being the way that I am meant to just manifest in this world. This is the shape and form and mentality that I'll achieve regardless of circumstance. This is my core, this is my essence, this is who and what I am no matter what. So let's take that route for the sake of simplicity. The reason I say I would have been miserable is because I like to feel like I am a free being, and my grandparents were the kind of folks who had so many strict rules that I consider incredibly silly, and some of them had to be, for instance, the most popular thing, which is girls for some reason cannot, what is it, dream about achieving anything for themselves because the expectation is you will meet a man and a man will take care of you and you are meant to be dedicated to the family and be stuck to the house and be stuck raising children. What is wrong with you aspiring to do something different? Like my mother always knew that she wanted to be a teacher at her home. They didn't support her. So imagine if I would have said, I want to be a judge, or I'm going to name all of the careers that I had interest in. I want to be a judge. I want to be a teacher. I want to be an artist. I want to be a musician. I want to be all those things. It's like they would have tried their damnedest to talk me out of my interests because in their minds, I, as a female, don't need to be worrying about aspiring for those things to make a living because I am meant to be maintained by a man. And as attractive as that sounds, to not have to work hard to achieve anything and you have security because a man is, his role is to protect and provide, deep down, I like to feel more fulfilled than that. Personally, I have things that I would like to just create and achieve that go well beyond my what's engraved in my DNA about producing offspring and ensuring their survival and then watching them go. What is wrong with me wanting to break a little bit out of that? And since society has things for us to do, why can I not implement myself into that? So that was pretty much the biggest war that my mother experienced with her parents, which is they just wanted to keep her around like she was a maid. And that some people can do well being housewives, being stuck in the house, but my mother's spirit, the kind of personality that she possesses, is she likes to develop minds, she likes to work, and she likes the idea of being self sufficient. So that is what she pursued. So I am similar to my mother in a lot of ways. So I safely deduce that I would have struggled and clashed with my grandparents as my parents just as bad as my mother did, because shoot, I like to be vocal. I like to be stress free. I like to be able to pursue my dreams. And that's part of why, even if I have challenges in my life to where I feel, oh, like I'm miserable and this and that, deep down, I'm still feeling like a happy person because I have the freedom of choice, and I am supported and no one is standing in my way except me sometimes. Like, my mother has never discouraged me from anything, even if I mention the most absurd of ideas for me to pursue. She's always like, do you have a plan? When are you going to start? And how can I help you? My mother did not receive any kind of support from her grandparents whatsoever. Whereas her brothers, of course, they were men. So they both took the military route and eventually just law enforcement. So it's like they knew what they were going to do. It's pretty much, you had a handful of choices, put it that way. But now it's like there are so many career opportunities and so many things that you can do and jobs that you don't even know exist. And this urgency of developing technology, that I feel like a lot of people's crisis with identifying what it is that they want to do comes from the fact that their own parents did not envision all of these things existing. Like, what is a telemarketer? What is a social network advisor, moderator thing? Inquirer, stuff like that. So that brings me to my next point, which is technology and its impact. And during the time that my grandparents would have been my parents, a lot of stuff was being developed and it was fast. Like, my mother told me the story of when she saw a washing machine for the first time. She's like, yep, when we got that washing machine, I was impressed because we didn't have to go to the river anymore and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? In my whole time alive, there has been a washing machine everywhere I go. And then she says that she preferred the method of hand washing, but because laundry could get out of control and the family was huge, to have a machine that could do it for you while you occupied yourself with other things, she thought that was magic. She thought that was impressive. And when I think about it, I would think it is impressive too. Like, I'm impressed that I was used to the idea that a computer is only limited to that box and then the motherboard and then the mouse and the keyboard. But now my phone is a computer. I can bring a computer with me everywhere. And not only that, but inside of this computer, there is a phone. I got used to landlines when I was growing up. But now, this technology, we need people to make it, maintain it, fix it. Whereas growing up during my time when my grandparents would have been my parents, that wouldn't have been a possibility. Like, I wouldn't even know that I would like electronics, because electronics would come about in the way and form and shape that I know them way later in my life. So it's not like I'm going to suddenly switch careers because I think that computers are cool, which present day Rio Zam doesn't. Like, I'm not a tech person at all. But my grandparents might have been concerned or intimidated that my competitiveness would become obsolete, just like theirs was becoming obsolete at an accelerated rate. And some of them passed on before they could even see any of this mess. Like, 2005, that is the year when stuff was still being developed. And you know it seems like in the last decade, as a lot of stuff just bloomed, and spread like crazy, and now everyone has a smartphone. So I'm pretty sure that my grandparents would have never seen that coming, and my grandfather did not even get to see that. So so did my grandparents mean any ill intent toward, say, my mother? I guess I'll never know for sure, but when it comes to my grandmother, unfortunately, she had a rough upbringing, so therefore, because she had a rough upbringing, she wanted for my mother to have a rough upbringing as well. So, you guys know that something that I personally dislike is people who are negative, people who are manipulative. So if my own mother is treating me that way, I'm going to rebel against that. So I would imagine that my relationship with my grandmother, being my mother, would definitely be difficult because in the real timeline, my mother did not have a good relationship with her, and I am again very similar to my mother. Whether it is that we're kindred spirits or her influence is definitely what turned me into the person I am. Let's just say that I'm who I am because this is who I was meant to be. But I know circumstances have an effect. But like I clarified earlier, let's just stick to for speculation's sake that this is just what I was going to be regardless of I uh, where I was brought up or my circumstances surrounding me, who influenced me and whatnot. So to not have the support of my mother, I would have felt very intimidated. It's like the world is really big out there and I'm all by myself. I cannot trust in my parents. I cannot come home to my parents' support and love. And okay, great. I get to go to college if they allow it, which they won't. I might have to escape to pursue it because they don't understand how important education is, but they're only thinking about you're the girl, you're going to get married. When you get married, your problems get solved, just like it happened with my grandparents. My grandma worked for a little while, but when she realized how to manage the stuff that she possessed because of her father owning so much stuff, she quit working. Like I don't think she worked for more than 2 years. Um, and where she worked at, if I remember right, is supposed to be a like a clothing factory type of deal. So so see what I mean? My grandmother did not know what it's like to have to work to make a living, work for someone else for a long time to make a living and then retire. She pretty much lived a retired lifestyle. In my time as a kid, she always had her stuff, her properties, and we could go places, and she had her family. So it's like the whole town was just available for us. So, with that degree of privilege, I guess I should feel happy that I have options and the family is big enough for me to find refuge in. But I feel like um what is my value as an individual? Like if I am going to live a privileged life just because that's what's been within the family, what kind of meaning does that give to my life? So that I think would be a struggle, and to know that I am not supported at pursuing an education to become a teacher me because I don't have to be main I don't have to be someone who maintains the tradition of sticking to the family. See what I mean? So my grandparents as my parents would not have made me feel fulfilled, and I definitely suspect that I would not have been a happy person either. And really, when I if I were to give a statement that's very oversimplified as to why I think that's the case, it's because that is simply like what they are capable of perceiving. They are a product and victims of their times. So if they were young adults in the 19, like, what is it, 1950s and stuff, 1940s, whatever is available at that time, whatever the mentality is at that time, that's the stuff that they will instill on us. And if I happen to be born with this kind of persona, that is clearly not going to be compatible with what my beliefs are. Of course, my beliefs are going to be limited by the thinking that's going on during those decades, but I would not have been fulfilled. So, not everything would have been absolutely bad and horrible. I'm sure that they would have been loving in their own way, and there is some good stuff that would have come out of it, just like my mother experienced. Like, she learned a lot of things from her parents. She knows how to fix a little bit of stuff, fix the basic stuff, and around the house. Mom knows a lot of solutions, a lot of home remedies. Because she met her grandfather, she knows a lot about how to treat certain ailments and whatnot. So that the fact that I would have learned a lot from the family would have excited me. That would have made me happy because as someone who's interested in pedagogy, that would have been great for me. Learning. I love to learn. But in the grand scheme of things, socially and my personal, psychological, emotional, and mental development, they would not have been good parents for me. So, you know, uh, that's as best as I can put it because unfortunately, again, I did not spend enough quality time with them, especially as an adult, to get to know them a little better. But based on my mother's account and how I seem to reflect a lot of her values, and I am fulfilled and happy by it, I feel like I am on the right path when it comes to me. So that's why I can be pretty assertive with what I am saying. So yeah, you guys, that's what I have on my end, and now I'll catch up with your lovely comments. Um, I really did not want to lose my flow this time. I am early again. I am on a roll. Yes, you are, Garuda. Hi, gorgeous. I lived with my grandparents for a number of years to help them when they got older. You know what? I wish that I would have had experience helping my grandparents now that I am an adult, but all of my great grandparents are gone. My great grandparents, all of them are gone as well. All of my grandfathers are gone, and now I only have my maternal and paternal grandmothers. And then my paternal grandmother just got diagnosed with cancer. So hopefully she'll be with us for longer, but that's what can I say? It's a part of life. Like she's hitting a certain age already, so I may only have one standing grandmother, and after that they'll be gone. So I'll do the best to get in touch with them and reach out and just do better about that because I know that I'll miss them. Like I already miss my family, period. But you know, it's never too late to start that stuff. I had to go to Denmark to live with them and learn Danish. Ooh, cool. I got sent to live with my mom's grandparents because she married my stepdad and kind of hated me because of my father when I was super young. I still have resentment towards my mom. Wow, Ruda, I would have never guessed that about you. When it comes to when a parent dislikes a child because they remind them of like an ex, someone that you had a relationship with or whatever, and that they did you wrong, and now your child is the reflection of that person because they have a physical resemblance and they unknowingly may have like internal quirks that reminds you of your ex and whatever. I wish that people did better about distinguishing the fact that you are an individual, and although you come from your father, you are foreign to him. You don't have to be the same person. You're not the same person. So I'm very proud of my mother for not being that kind of person when she divorced my father. She could have hated him. She could have instilled hate in me for me to like actively despise my father and resent him and whatnot. But she always told me, Zam, no matter what, love him, hate him, ugly, hot, that's your father. You don't need to love him. You don't need to hate him. You decide. Ended their relationship in good terms more than not. Like anytime we would have a situation, like we would get sick or we needed money for whatever, we could always count on our father providing a little more. Because my father knew the kind of quality woman that my mother was. Like she made sure that her children came first and the necessities and responsibilities and her duties, she always had that up to date. So it's not like we had to worry about that. So because my father was able to back up the fact that my mother is responsible, he trusted her and to this day still does. If I were to need something, I am sure that I could count on his support because he knows that I would have a legitimate cause. I never have bugged my father just to fool around. So I find that inspiring. Like I like the fact that my parents are not an example of a couple who divorced and they ended up hating each other to where they just want to like, if they could shoot each other, they would. Yes, they had their differences and they had their issues, but they were both able to retain like reasoning. They did not become emotional beasts against each other. So I feel like I was not brought up in a toxic environment on that department. But it really saddens me when I hear stories of children who are used as shields. It's like, oh, I'm going to use my child to bribe, someone, or, you know, it's not the right thing to do because at the end of the day, it's the poor child who has to pay the consequences, and it's adults' mistakes are not debts of the children. So that's stuff that y'all gotta sort out amongst adults and not involve kids. But anyways, that just pushed my parenting button. I resented it at first too. My grandfather actually held the title of Prince of Oldenburg. Kids made fun of me because of it. My mom's grandparents let me be free. My mom was overprotective and a fake person. My mom sent me to live with my dad, and he let me have more freedom. I hear that a lot, that the parenting style between mothers and fathers tends to be that the fathers tend to be more carefree, not careless, carefree, and mothers really have like their maternal instinct kick in, and they feel like they have to actively be very proactively be involved with their children to ensure that they don't you know get lost or dive into like some dark world of some sort to where we cannot rescue your children from. But because those two things are polar opposites, I think that is what brews a lot of issues within a relationship. Because, say, if the mother's leadership and authority is not really making the children behave in the manner that she expects, she is going to recur to the man of the house, hopefully for more of a pushy authority, but the man is not thinking like that. Because what the female finds to be a big deal that you have to freak out about, the guy can keep it together. So, and then the woman is going to be like, you don't care. You're so careless. How dare you? How can you not consider this important? How can you be so chill about things? So, it's like, how can a man and a woman be in a relationship to where they don't have to compete in the authority segment? How do you ensure that you are not undermining your husband's leadership and your own leadership is not being undermined. So I think that gets pretty tricky, but it seems like what works best is to let the man be the man, let the woman be the woman. And if the woman is having issues having with the children obeying her or something, it's like, okay, you can mention it to the father, but do not expect for the father's management style to resemble yours. You cannot expect a man to be actively like breathing on a child's neck. And if that's what you visualize as proper leadership, why don't you fucking do it? If your children are not listening to you, then maybe your style is ineffective, and therefore the man's style can hopefully be more compatible to the personality of your children. Don't get mad at him for not freaking out like you when your freaking out has clearly not yielded the results that you seek. See what I mean? So, so that's what I try to say on that note. And yeah, nothing is worse than a fake mother, because you need a mother to like protect you, nurture you, and all that. And then if you have someone who you just cannot trust, like she acts a certain way in front of you and then behind you talks smack about you, that I have seen my friends' mothers do that to my friends. Like, say my friend goes to the bathroom or something, and then during that interim, they're telling me a trash story about my friend. Like, why do you feel compelled to bring someone's dirty laundry onto public light? Are you trying to to influence my perception of my friend? Like, you ain't gonna succeed, lady. Just chill out. I had very little freedom, lots of protocol and ceremony. Yeah, I know families like that. There's like rituals that you gotta follow. I cannot do it. If I don't feel committed to something that's becoming a routine from the bottom of my heart, just don't bother me with it, you know? My mom is an idiot. Oh my god, Garuda, you're the second person that I hear actively calling their mother an idiot. Like that same line, same sentence, same punctuation and everything. My mom is an idiot. And I have heard it within the past year. So, wow, you guys really have a lot of stuff to say. She actually said, why you are smoking weed? Didn't you know weed bad? Meanwhile, a dude I hanged around had a mother that let him smoke weed, who was my mom's best friend. Parents sometimes are hypocrites. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No need to deny it. Um, on the note of smoking, Ruda, you reminded me of a story of me and my maternal grandma, or my maternal grandmother and I. Let me be proper. I don't care. So the last time I visited her, I was 18 years old, and she was wondering why I. She offered me a drink. I am 18 years old, and she was offering me a drink, an alcoholic drink. And then she's like, how about if you have a drink with me? And I'm like, no, Grandma, I don't drink. And then she's like, it's all right, just have a drink with me. And I said, no, Grandma, I am underage. And she's like, well, a lot of people who are your age already do it. Why don't you do it? You know, they smoke and have a lot of boyfriends and girlfriends. You know, why aren't you like that? And then I'm like, Grandma, simple. They are they, I am me. What they do is not what I have to do. What they do is not what I have to do and what I feel represents me. So if they wish to smoke, let them smoke. But just because it is popular for kids to smoke, it doesn't mean that I have to follow what the crowd is doing. I don't have to do what is cool, you know? Because down the line, I know that that stuff is not going to be cool as it feels like in the moment that you're participating in that mess. I have never tried it and I don't care to. I don't need to. It stinks. So after I told her that, and I literally said it just like that, she was like, you know what? You actually make me pretty proud because I don't normally hear the youth expressing themselves like I hear you. But in my mind, though, it kind of fucked with my brain because I'm like, this is my grandmother. This is the being who. Okay, let's try this again. Being that my mom is the daughter of her mother, my grandmother by default should love my mom, and then my mom is going to love me. So why would a person who loves you, like say grandparents, I imagine, love their grandchildren more because it's like your kids. That's exciting. So why would someone who's supposed to love me so much encourage me to participate in a behavior that's not good or healthy? See what I mean? But when I think about it, my grandmother's level of education and what she values, it made her an incompatible character with me. And because I already knew some of her background from stories that mom would tell me, I knew that I was dealing with an ignorant person and that I had to watch out for that. And during the times that she grew up, that was popular. It was clandestine, but it was still popular. And now that that behavior is being normalized and even expected from the youth, she was simply associating me with the rest of the crowd. And for me personally, it just disappointed me because I would expect that my grandmother knows who I am and what I am based on the ideals and values that my mother has. But of course, my mother and grandmother, they ain't tight like that. They're completely different beings. At least you can see my resemblance to my mother. But my mother and her mother, no, no, no. Two different things. Absolutely two different things. It's like I, for a fact, you can count on me passing on my mother's legacy. But my mother absolutely did not pass on my grandmother's legacy. And I am very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. Sorry to hear about your grandma. I have faith that she'll be alright. Again, it's a part of life. Sometimes you can avoid it, sometimes you cannot. Now, my personal concern is I will observe my aunts because if they end up having it, especially at a young age, I guess that means that I need to be worried. But now I want to consider what's making my grandmother sick. Was she already genetically predisposed to it? Were there more women who had like that type of thing happen to them in the family, or is she the first one developing it? And if that's the case, is it an environmental reason, an underlying disease, or, that's what I want to know now so that I know what I can expect and put on my doctor robe and try to, I don't know, keep myself healthy. My grandparents and parents expected us to have manners, set bedtimes, chores, etc. There was very little disagreement in enforcing beforehand expectation behavior and expectations. When I came to my grandparents, of course they were like that. I feel like in older times, discipline, order, respect, manners, it was something seemingly inherent. Like, I don't ever recall someone saying that with their grandparents they could do whatever the hell they wanted. Like, oh, I didn't have to worry about cleaning up my bed. Like, do you think I get this bed done as soon as I wake up? No! This thing has not been made and it hasn't looked not wrinkled since I changed the bed sheets, and this was back in either late November or early December. And before this, I had bed sheets for like months and they were never clean and neat because I don't need this. To me, my apartment is like a hotel room. Like, I'm here for a couple of hours and then I'm mostly out, and I come back here to eat and sleep and then repeat that cycle. So for me, I don't mind living in a place that's not perfectly clean. But my mother, she will like tremble and freak out. She cannot see a dish in the sink. But nowadays she has mellowed out from it because before she like left, she was like really really picky about that. She was like, ah, you need to make sure that you don't leave any goddamn spoons in the sink. And I'm like, okay, mommy, but if it's something stupid that in the next morning it can take me like, if it's spoons and stuff, it only takes a literal minute to get rid of. Why would I need to like take care of it immediately? Like, chill out, lady. I got it under control. Now, if you were talking about a sea of dishes, like pans that have grease in it, and stuff like glasses and more cups and mugs and all that, okay, please do freak out. Do demand for me to take care of it the night before and whatnot, because it's gross. Cockroaches are going to like show up. But other than that, it's like my mom let me be me. Like, if you're going to be a messy person, how about if you're a messy person in your room? But it's not due to a lack of direction and leadership from me. It's just that you are not designed to keep stuff so neat and tidy. I used to be OCD. Everyone self diagnoses as OCD. So that's why I say OCD. I don't want to uh, state it as a fact. But when I was a little kid, I was freaky about things. I had my shoes in order of type of shoe and size and color, and my clothes, they were all distributed by size and color and style and type. Like, there's the elegant stuff, there's the stuff to be at home, the stuff to play sports with, the stuff to spend the day in, the stuff to sleep with. I was a little freak about that stuff, but I just moved on from that because I it's great for stuff to be organized, but I learned to live on the go. And I simply cannot dwell on things that don't really bring me joy like that. Like, for me, keeping my place absolutely squeaky clean, it's important for me when it comes to the health aspect of it, but I don't have to be every single weekend. I don't need to be cleaning the windows. I don't need to be like mopping the floor. If it's absolutely filthy, then sure, I may get it 2 times a week. But but you can tell when your house needs cleaning. And if you're someone who practices good hygiene, you can get away with going periods of time without really doing some deep cleaning. We rarely need to do any deep cleaning, and I'm pretty confident about the state of our house. So, whereas your grandparents, they think that every single day you have to pay attention to details like that, deep clean, and keep everything all extra. So, the younger generations keep getting more and more flexible and open and lazier about it. So it is a bad thing because it can be carried on to like the workplace. I work with some of the most disorganized fucks ever. but all I do is I give them some tips on how to make their lives a little better. But I always tell them, don't praise me and compliment me too much on my tidiness, because at home I am a fucking mess. So I feel like a fraud a lot of the times because it's like, yeah, you have expectations of me, but if you were to visit my house, it does not look like Zam lives here. Not at all. So, yeah. I did like living. Wait, I skipped a comment. Okay. I think if the parents have basic ground rules like enforcing manners, etc., then there shouldn't be too much disagreement in parenting styles. Good point. My grandparents and parents expected us to have manners and set bedtimes. Okay, that's the one that I skipped. Someone has the sniffles. Oh, yeah, it's that time of the night when it starts getting extra chilly, and yeah. There is never a night when I'm not sniffly, honestly. Like, I'm one of those people who has to sleep like, because I just cannot breathe through my nose at all. I did like living with my grandparents, though they let me go outside and play, help me with homework, and feed me. Don't even get me started on grandparents feeding. Every single grandparent has a legendary cuisine. Like all of my grandparents, I could go to any one of their houses and I could count on eating some delicious ass food. And I always wonder how, when, where, why, just how is this possible, you know? And I feel like a lot of the times that just gets lost. My mother retained a lot of good recipes, but because we lived such busy lives to where she had to work long insane hours and I had to work long insane hours, and when I was in school she had to work long and insane hours, and she was single. Unfortunately she never really has gotten to teach me much, but we already talked about it, and I'm like, Mom, please teach me stuff, because I it's not that I have issues with the way I cook or the habit that I have. I do it for diet and fitness, but like, teach me some stuff. There's stuff that I would like to do occasionally to break from the routine, and I feel like that might keep my soul healthy and full and all that mess. My mom cleans the entire house every day. Oh, and before I move on, your grandparents just don't know when to say no. Like, to me, if I wanted, I don't know, something crazy like a whole meal, they could fix it in a very, very short period of time. It's like the supermarket is in their refrigerator somehow. Anything, absolutely anything ever that I craved, my grandmother would fix in the instant. So, needless to say, that's how I became a chubby child when I was younger. But anyways, and now I'm getting chubby again because I'm eating much more than I'm moving, and the winter does that to me. But anyway, so I'm sure I'll get back on track. I just need to fucking believe in myself and stop being lazy. It's just the weather, man. It's not inspiring. My mom cleans the entire house every day. It takes her about 2 hours, and she says it is a great exercise. That too, for me, setting a day to, like, first of all, for me to summon the willpower to spend the time cleaning and to invest a whole day cleaning. Like, I work, and after I do work, it's like I don't want to come home and do anything resembling work. So it's like whatever working spirit I have, I give it to someone else working in some company. So to come to my house and know that I have more work to do, it's just soul sucking for me. But 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 it's crazy. My mom can cook and clean the kitchen and clean the entire house in like under 4 hours. And for some reason, I just struggle to get moving, to like get up in the morning. It takes me 2 hours on my days off to get up and move. I just bullshit, just laying there staring at the wall like, not today. I'm not doing anything today. No, no. Like, what happened to us? How did our life and energy and spirits just get sucked from us like that? But anyways, let's see. Take a NyQuil. Ugh, medicine. Blah. Nah, nah. This is nothing. It's all right. My immune system is pretty invincible, except for nighttime. Like, I guess I sound worse than I really feel, but I'm actually all right. This is actually the best that I felt in 2 weeks. So you just need to trust me on that one. I love my grandparents' food. Most grandparents from other families go on with the food. Grandparents spoil you to get revenge on when their kids were difficult. You know what? That is so true because my mother has told me, you know what? If only I would have gotten as spoiled as you get spoiled by grandparents. My parents were not like that with me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? These people are generous. These people are amazing. What are you talking about that they didn't treat you like they treat me? Like, no, woman, you're making stuff up. No, I don't believe it. But But yeah, it's interesting. When I was with my grandparents, I did not have much, so I was never messy, but I was always asked to help clean. They would mostly tell me no. Oh, but I always asked to help clean, and they would always mostly tell me no. You know what? My grandparents were the same way. My grandma never, ever, ever asked me or required me or demanded for me to clean stuff. And it was extremely rare that I was the one who had to like fix my plate, take it to the table. No, that lady gave me full service. It's like she was serving me. Like I am the princess, royalty, upper class who's getting attention and all that. And I'm like, why? She's my elder. I'm the one who's supposed to be making her life comfortable. But yeah, it's like my grandparents were used to like serving me. It's weird. So I guess that's why we may end up with some children who are incredibly spoiled because their parents and grandparents may accidentally spoil them too much and they do not establish the difference between you are shown manners and kindness and politeness because they are the hosts of their home and not that you are entitled to that treatment. Because I'm finding that a lot of young people, they don't have manners. And I'm like, why? But when I think about it, I'm pretty sure that no one told them, hey, inside of your family, this is how you will be treated in this social circle. But when you go out there, you cannot expect for people to hear you cry and for them to flock over to where you are and try to fix you. It doesn't work like that. So I guess that's also where a lot of people's emotional insecurities must come from because it's like you did not grow up hearing the word no. And for people to actually hold on to that. Because sometimes, let's say that you're at a store and you have a child, and the child starts crying because they want a toy, and you say, I'm not going to buy that toy because I don't have enough money. And the child keeps crying, and then you say no again, and the child keeps crying, and then you give in to the child. You are teaching them that if they persist and bug and whine and bitch and complain, that they can eventually have their way. No, you need to be firm with your leadership and not, no matter how ear piercing their whining is, you need to somehow just tolerate that. And fantastic, my picture froze with the prettiest look ever. But anyways, guys, I'm about to wrap this up because that girl needs to crash. Where am I at? Maris, I won't spoil my kids. On the note of spoiling my kids, I'm pretty sure that I will spoil them to a certain extent, but basically with moderation, just like my mother guided me. So yeah, I just hope that my kids are good. I love how it looks like I'm showing my finger inside of my ear, but it's actually on that little like whatever piece of skin just randomly protrudes before you get to the ear hole. But anyways, I am with you, Garuda. Alright guys, well, it's been a pleasure. I have enjoyed myself trying to speculate how my life would be if I would have had my parents. I hope that you guys enjoyed my stories and ramblings and whatnot. I definitely enjoyed to hear a little more about the keyboard lovely warriors who just visit me and are so faithful to me every single day of your life. And yeah, it really makes my days better. So thanks so much. All right, guys. If it's nighttime for you, have a good night and